Yo!
You know what it is. It's your guy, Rhett, Butler, and this. Well, this is that pretty left hook. Hit your goddamn liver full. Man, I'm sorry I left you. Your boy got a little sick. Thought I was going to remain undefeated during this goddamn pandemic season, but they got me, man. Your boy was out for the count. I missed my last show. We ain't going to talk about it because it hurts my feelings, but what we are going to talk about, okay, and before I get into this, okay, I got to put some disclaimers out there because, you know, I don't like getting in other people's business, but I'm going to tell you something. When you're talking about sports, when you're talking about big money, when you're talking about the Me Too era, when you're talking about domestic violence, when you're talking about things that are way bigger than fisticuffs and what looks now like silence, we have to open the door for discussion. So I'm going to say that to say the following. We got to talk about Dana White and his slapping of his wife. Okay? I'm going to just throw that out there. Now, before we get into this, let me preface this with some disclaimers. Okay? I used to work as a contractor for the UFC when it was under the Zuffa system for many years. I think I started with them in 2006. And I went with them all around the world. I helped them start teams all over the world. I ran back of house logistics, fighter relations, all that good stuff. Amazing experience, great people. I'm still friends with most of the people that have stayed. Those people took me all around the world. Changed the entire trajectory of my life path. I was on some journalism stuff, and these people, you know, I did events. Don't get me twisted. I was doing events as well, but these people took me all around the world, straight up. I've been all over the earth, running the back of house for fights. And one thing I will say is when I started, the company was a lot smaller. So it was easy to see Dana White moving around. And I'm sure they still see him moving around because he's very active. But he was like always right around. His dad at the time worked at the spot. It's a family, you know, it was really, in all intents and purposes, a family business. A lot of his boys worked there that he brought from Boston and all that. So this is a company that was founded on friendships, you know, with the Fertitta brothers. For those who don't know, Station Casinos, these guys were the ones that initially invested in Dana White's want to get the UFC from, I believe it was called Seraphore Entertainment. You know, the guys that first started the UFC when it was called Human Cockfighting by John McCain and all that. Anyway, Dana White was smart enough to get with Lorenzo Fertitta, who was a Nevada State Athletic Commissioner or president of the commission at the time, or if he wasn't at the time, he had been that, so he knew how to regulate it and get it pushed through. And of course, these guys are big balling in Las Vegas, so they know how to get casinos and make it happen and put the money up and blah, blah. Fast forward, Spike TV, Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner fight. Rest in peace to Stephen, that was my man. And UFC popped off, right? Now, $4 billion some change sale later, Dana White's on top of the universe. The UFC is owned by Endeavor, formerly called William Morris. The UFC is the biggest MMA promotion, mixed martial arts, for those who are very slow, in the world. He did what he had to do. I seen it. I was there. I seen it. I was there. He did it big. He was buying everybody. He bought Strikeforce. He bought World Extreme Cage Fighting. He was able to get all the Pride guys over. I mean, he did a nationwide, worldwide, global takeover of the sport. Yes, Bellator is outside. Shout out to Scott Coker. There's always going to be a Pepsi to a Coke. You know what I mean? But UFC's Coke, man. Pause. No Pusha T. No Pusha T. We're talking about the drink. And they did the damn thing. Okay? They made superstars. Right? Conor McGregor, Anderson Silva, GSP, Matt Hughes. Dana famously said women will never be in the UFC until Ronda Rousey came and started breaking everybody's arm. Then she came over and did what she did. They did the damn thing. Can't take nothing away from that. Most of that was done by Dana White's doggedness. This guy is like a dog with a bone. He wants this thing to blow up, and he made it blow up. He did what he had to do. He made the right deals, found the right guys. The timing was right. You know, timing is everything in business, especially the fight game. And he made the right plays. And he's very bullish on Power. He's not giving fighters control. This is not going to be boxing. The way he looks at boxing is that boxing is lawless. He's going to keep everything very self-contained and controlled. Now, here's what happens with people that have a control mentality. Again, I'm speaking in generalizations. A lot of times, they're out of control in their personal life. Now, what we do know is that during the New Year's Eve celebrations for 2022 going into 2023, Dana White and his wife Ann White were in Cabo, San Lucas. They were enjoying a New Year's Eve festivity, celebration, whatever. And she smacked him. Now, one thing I always tell my friends, if a woman is going to hit you or does hit you, run! Like, get up out of there. Skedaddle. Look, the drinks was flowing. Whatever goes on in this man's personal life, my disclaimer, I said I was going to give you a disclaimer. Look, I'm black. We don't get into people's family business. Look, that's just like an unwritten rule of blackness. We try to stay out your business. All right? But that's personal. We're talking business now. Dana White, guttural instinctual reaction, bop, smacked her back. Had this been Dana and Ann, who we don't know, who don't run a multi-billion-dollar organization that provides combat sports entertainment on a global level, unfortunately, nobody would care. We wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't be in the media. It would be yet another domestic dispute. Shame on him, right? Shame on her, but shame on him, right? Because you don't hit a woman. But this is Dana White. Brash. Always talking crazy to his fighters and about his fighters at press conferences, on the internet. Dana's unfiltered. It's part of his charm, so to speak, in a business where talking greasy gets you paid. What 50 say? I get what you get for a brick to talk greasy. That's the fight game. Talking greasy is called fight hype. People love it. It sells tickets. It sells pay-per-views. It is what it is. Dana talks heck of trash about his fighters all day. He's the greasiest, most talkingest dude in the game that ain't fighting nobody. Respectfully. So what happens is when you start seeing things like a domestic incident where he didn't take the high road and actually hit her back in public, you know, it starts looking like, yo, bro, I mean, you do realize your position in this world as a businessman, right? Like, you can't just do that. On top of that, which is the most ironic thing of all times, he's invested in a company called the Power Slap Fighting League. The Power Slap Fighting League. And he smacked his wife. In fact, the week that he smacked his wife was supposed to be the debut of the Power Slap Fighting League on TBS. They had to delay the debut because he slapped his lady. I mean, on top of that, the share price for Endeavor, which owns the UFC, dipped by like 7 points that same week based on the news and the revelations. Then on top of that, because ESPN airs UFC fights, people started getting at ESPN like, yo, you're not talking about this? Oh, so because that's your business partner, you can't talk about this? And then journalists like myself and others started saying appropriately, if this was Roger Goodell, NFL, I believe his name is Robert Manfred, or Mr. Manfred, MLB. We know these guys, all these guys who run these sports leagues, man. Okay, Adam Silver, NBA. And they smacked any woman, let alone their wife. These guys will be fired. Roger Goodell works for the NFL owners. If you don't know, the NFL commissioner works for the owners. He can't smack nobody. He's out of there. They're trying to get Dan Snyder, the owner, to watch the Commanders out right now for having toxic workplace culture. You want to talk about slapping up your actual woman? But Dana White did it. And interestingly, when you look at what just happened with Vince McMahon, right? He just stepped down as the chairman, CEO of the WWE, because they found out that he's been paying people off for years because he's having children and out of, marital wedlock trysts and all. He was doing a lot. He's out of there. His daughter's running it now with Triple H. But Dana White, to many now, seems like he's receiving a pass. Now, his wife said, one-time incident, that's not the way he usually gets down. Don't do him no harm. Of course, Dana did a low-key apology, explaining himself, all of that, because he had to walk back some words where he said, no excuse for hitting a woman. Obviously, we know War Machine, a former fighter, now incarcerated for life, for almost taking the life of his then-girlfriend, Christy Mack. Dana White went crazy. On anything that involves domestic violence, he acts like you are the worst. And he just did what he said to his own wife on camera. Why am I talking about this? Because I don't like getting messy. I don't like getting in other people's business. What has to happen in professional combat sports, if it's to be taken serious, because everybody wants to pile on boxing and talk about it's lawless, there's no rules, it's crazy. Well, MMA, specifically through the UFC, has done a great job of creating great organization. While you're fighting sustainability, I don't want to say lifelong sustainability, because there's many fighters that are now not doing well, medical issues, the whole nine. They have very similar situations like the NFL with the CTE situation, right? But you're a prize fighter. You fight for a little while, it's a wrap. There's no pension, there's no union, all of these things that people like Jake Paul are talking about to help these guys long term, right? They don't exist right now. But we know that Dana White's at the top of the mountain. He has more followers on social media than all his fighters. He's the biggest celebrity in the UFC, and he doesn't even fight. He is the Vince McMahon of their machine. But unlike Vince McMahon, I think the UFC believes they can't survive without him. And they could be correct. Dana White brings a certain level of energy, sophistication, white boy angst. I mean, there's a lot of things wrapped up in the Dana White thing that probably relates to the core followership. But you hit your wife. We have to talk about this, and we have to make sure we're not silent about this. Because in the era that we're in now, unchecked power is not acceptable anymore. We learned this through Donald Trump. He got checked. When it was unchecked, people ran up in the White House. Ran up in the Capitol building. People died. A person that Dana White supported, by the way. Floyd Mayweather supported him too. I ain't trying to play tit for tat, but I'm making correlations so you can see a couple things here. People always talking about the way Dana White treats the fighters. If you're not on the headlining a pay-per-view level or a champion, you're not getting pieces of the pay-per-view. Your bread might be short. They're still getting show-up money, win bonuses, and things of that nature instead of just a flat rate. He does not want any parts of any unionization of fighters. He's vehemently opposed to people like Jake Paul who are dipping in and out the game. He doesn't let his fighters fight in boxing matches, which will make them exorbitantly more money. And on top of all of that, when you've sold a company for almost $5 billion, you got a lot of money, and you control these people's livelihoods with the stroke of a pen or a whim or a press conference rant session about somebody who's getting on your nerves. You get to slap your wife. Yes, she slapped you first, but you get to slap your wife back, and nothing happens. I want to go into something that his mom said in 2011 because, he said, his wife said this has never happened before, blah, blah. But his mom, Dana White's mom, June White, has a different story. In a book called Dana White, King of MMA, in an interview about that book, she said some crazy things about her son. This is June White. I don't want to take anything away from him for what he's done for MMA and the UFC. I mean, Dana has a high school education, and that's it. I think it's pretty amazing the things he's been able to do in MMA and the UFC. But he's not a good person. He seems to have lost his character somewhere along the way. He mistreats people. It's terrible the way he speaks to women and treats women. That really bothers me because I don't believe I've ever brought him up to behave like that. This is June White, Dana White's mom. Plenty of the ring girls sleep with him, she claimed. There's 2 of them I know for sure. He slept with his sister-in-law in my house, which made me absolutely furious. These are explosive claims his mom made in 2011, man. She continued, I mean, he goes after any girl he wants and usually gets them, she continued. His wife they're constantly fighting. The honeymoon, she gave him the worst black eye I've ever seen and nearly lost his eye. Could be an embellishment, but it shows the fact that they be on some domestic violence, Ike and Tina type energy. So I don't know if that's his way of handling that, but he's gone overboard with handling that. You know, since all of this went down, again, many people have felt like Dana White has gotten off pretty easy. But there's been one organization that's now calling for his removal. The California Legislative Women's Caucus have demanded, sent a letter to, I believe his name is Ari Emanuel, the guy that runs Endeavor, which owns the UFC, the UFC's parent company. He's demanded that the UFC's Dana White immediate removal. The California Legislative Women's Caucus, they've demanded of Ari Emanuel of Endeavor for Dana White's immediate removal in a letter. The California Legislative Women's Caucus is calling for the immediate dismissal of Dana White after the video emerged of him and his wife getting into a physical altercation on New Year's Eve in Mexico. This is real, man. Like, this is not a small organization. You know what I'm saying? This is these are a group of California senators. You know, California State Senator Nancy Skinner. Now, mind you, Endeavor's based in LA. Okay, so they're trying to hit them directly into the parent company. They didn't go to Las Vegas. They didn't deal with Las Vegas. These are California state senators saying, yo, and they do a lot of fights in Los Angeles, California, saying, you got to go. He got to go. They wrote, your continued silence speaks volumes. And they're talking to Ari Emanuel of Endeavor. It's time to remove Mr. White from his leadership role. Silence and inaction are not an option. We agree, and we are urging you to take immediate action. The head of a major sporting organization cannot claim to be for the safety of women while a video of him striking his wife continues to circulate online without a response from you. The hypocrisy is astounding. Enough is enough. It is time to remove Mr. White from his leadership role to allow him and his partner to get the help they need while reminding the world of what Endeavor stands for and that violence against women is not a conduct that you condone. Woo! In the letter, they reference some things that Ari Emanuel has been a part of to show why this looks hypocritical, that he hasn't said anything, or the organization. Emanuel has been vocal about past controversies with the Hollywood mogul, recently penning 2 op-eds speaking out against anti-Semitism from Kanye West and Dave Chappelle, and he called for a boycott of West, saying it's up to all of us to stop regarding silence as an acceptable option. Ari Emanuel also called for Hollywood to shun Mel Gibson for his bigoted comments, even if it means, this is a quote, even if it means a sacrifice to the bottom line. You know, the UFC makes over $1 billion a year. Hundreds of fighters under contract. This is big business. Can you imagine, again, any other leader of a sports organization of that size slapping his wife on camera and it being acceptable? And it says a lot about the culture of MMA. So anything goes? You know, at one point, Dana White fought to stop having MMA mislabeled as human cockfighting. Yes, I don't get involved in people's business. It's not my business. But this guy is running people's lives, whole careers. You can die in the ring and nobody goes to prison. You could die in the cage and nobody goes to prison. You're signing up for all that. The leadership have a responsibility to look above anything like this. And when you're on this level, making this kind of money and serving this many custodies, we expect more, Mr. White. You know, I got personal stories. I used to be around. I seen Dana at Christmas parties and things like that. Again, I don't like talking about people BI, but I seen situations happen with him and his lady. I never seen him touch her, but I seen her touch him. I seen her touch him. I seen her get removed. Like, I seen things go down, okay, when the alcohol's flowing. Alcohol's a hell of a drug. Again, what we saw in that video, unacceptable for any man to do. Again, I can tell all my boys, if you know your woman's gonna hit you or a woman's gonna hit you, man, you need to run. I don't care. I'm not with that get back, I'm gonna hit you. No. You touch me, I'm gone. Go to the police. Let them handle that. Hopefully somebody filmed it. That's your evidence right there if you want to take it further. Men can never hit women. And if you run a major fighting organization, you have immediately put a black eye on the sport. Everything you fought to gain for this sport, you basically threw in the trash. And just because you want to keep your autonomy and control, now the world is seeing how you can get stories squashed, dissuade people from talking about you because, you know, journalists like me, we're looking for ad money and things such as that. We know what it is. But as an impartial body, as a person that loves the sport, I cannot stand by and not speak my piece on it. It is what it is. I love MMA. I just want you to do better. And if you know better, you for sure gonna do better. Hey man, this is your boy Rhett Butler. This is the Pretty Left Hook. Shout out to the whole Up On Game Network. Hey, yo, what's Gucci, man? Dustin, Vito, Cardo, Blanco, and of course the big homie, LeVar Arrington. Check out Up On Game Network Presents all over YouTube, all over everywhere podcasts are heard. Check me out at Pretty Left Hook, the podcast on IG, at Pretty Left Hook on Twitter, at Rhett E. Butler, Twitter and IG, because you know what the fuck it is, man. Non-violent. Peace.